Okay, so we're diving deep today into a conversation with Kendall Jenner.
Right.
You flagged this open conversation with her from a health and wellness podcast, and
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really fascinating to kind of pull out what she had to say about, managing anxiety and finding happiness and all that.
Especially navigating life in the public eye. I think that adds a really interesting dimension to this whole conversation.
Yeah, it's a whole different world.
Totally. And what I really appreciated about this particular interview was it wasn't just, sound bites and quick answers. It
Right.
was a really honest conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kendall shared some pretty vulnerable reflections about her mental health and how she's grown over the years and
Yeah.
even just, those little everyday things that make her happy.
Right. Right.
So we're here to kind of help you sift through all of that and pinpoint those actionable pieces and maybe some surprising perspectives too.
Okay, so let's start with how this conversation even came to be.
Okay.
Apparently, Kendall was the one who reached out to the host.
Mm.
She felt this connection with him after seeing some of his work on mental health,
Oh, wow.
which I think is really interesting right off the bat.
Yeah, that proactive step, I think, speaks volumes.
Right.
Right. It shows an intention to engage in these conversations about well-being and mental health.
Yeah, and she even said something like, it felt like the universe was just putting it in perfect timing, you know?
Oh, interesting.
Like she really believed in following her gut feeling on this one.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you've talked about being interested in different viewpoints on these topics,
Yeah.
and this certainly offers a unique one.
Right.
I mean, it makes you wonder about those moments in your own life where things just seem to align perfectly.
It does, yeah, absolutely. And it's also really telling, I think, who she mentions admiring.
Yeah.
Like Michael Pollan, Michael Singer, Wim Hof.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That gives you a sense of her broader interests, right?
Absolutely.
A
Yeah.
real curiosity about deeper self-understanding, well-being, which I know is something you explore too.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at those figures, it points to a focus on the mind-body connection,
Yeah.
mindfulness, the
Yeah.
impact of our environment.
Yeah.
It suggests she's really looking at well-being through this, multifaceted lens.
Right.
So for you listening, this might be a good time to pause and think about how those different aspects of your own life, the mental, the physical, even your surroundings, how those contribute to your overall sense of well-being.
It's all connected, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, something that I thought was really powerful that she said was that she wants to share this side of herself that people don't always see.
Right.
Not to get sympathy or anything, but to connect on a real human level. I mean, that's got to be a real challenge when you're living so much of your life in the public eye.
Oh, absolutely. Maintaining that authenticity under constant scrutiny is a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
And she specifically talked about wanting to share practical tips.
Yeah.
Just those everyday things that can make a difference. Like
Right.
getting outside,
Mm-hmm.
deep breaths, journaling. These are all really accessible self-care practices that anyone can incorporate into their routine.
Right.
What stands out to you about that, about her wanting to share those simple things?
I think it's the relatability of it, Even though her life is so different, she's highlighting these basic human practices that we can all tap into, and it makes her seem so much more vulnerable.
Yeah.
She even admitted to feeling nervous before this conversation,
Wow.
which is kind of surprising, right?
It is, considering, how much she's been in the spotlight.
Yeah.
But you know what? That nervousness really underscores how personal it is to share these kinds of things.
Yeah.
It takes courage to be vulnerable,
Mm.
regardless of how accustomed you are to being in the public eye.
Absolutely. And it just reminds us that opening up about personal struggles is a universal human experience.
Yeah, it is.
So something that I found really fascinating was her deep connection with animals, especially horses. She talked about them in such a beautiful way. She described them as majestic and gorgeous and spiritual,
Wow.
which, that just paints such a vivid picture of that bond.
It does, and it really highlights the impact those kinds of connections can have on our well-being.
Absolutely. And she mentioned feeling like her 12-year-old self around her horse.
Oh, that's sweet.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It really illustrates that pure joy and comfort she finds in those relationships.
It does. And it makes you think about what brings you that same feeling of unadulterated joy
Yeah.
and how you can nurture those connections in your own life.
Yeah, for sure. It's so important. And, speaking of those positive feelings, she also enjoys those more solitary activities like writing cold plunges, journaling.
Right.
It shows how much she values having that personal time for reflection and those self-care routines we talked about.
Exactly. Solitude and intentional self-care aren't just about, escaping the world.
Right.
They're crucial for recharging, gaining clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah, those practices give you space to really look inward and can lead to a stronger sense of self.
For sure. Have you found that to be true in your own life?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think having that quiet time is essential for processing things.
Yeah. Okay. So she shared some interesting insights into her early life, too.
Right.
She was apparently always really disciplined, even wanted to work from a young age,
Wow.
doing things like dog walking.
That's pretty responsible for a young kid.
I know, right? It kind of goes against that, stereotypical image of celebrity life, doesn't it?
It does. That early inclination towards responsibility and wanting to contribute is fascinating.
Yeah.
And, her preference as a kid to be alone with animals,
Right.
which she's now rediscovering in her enjoyment of solitude.
Yeah.
It suggests this consistent thread throughout her life, this deep understanding of what brings her peace.
I love that.
It makes you think about how those early experiences shape us and what we gravitate towards later on.
Absolutely. So when they started talking about her proudest moments,
Yeah.
you'd probably expect, the usual career highlights. And she did mention achieving her modeling goals, through hard work and determination from age 14.
Okay.
But what she was most proud of was the personal work she did around 23, 24.
Interesting.
Learning to set boundaries because she was feeling overworked and unhappy.
Wow.
That's huge, right?
It is. While we often see and celebrate external success, her proudest achievement was prioritizing her inner well-being,
Right.
even when it meant going against those external pressures.
Yeah.
The courage to say no in such a competitive industry because she felt like she was losing herself, that's a powerful lesson in self-advocacy.
Absolutely. It really highlights that true success isn't just about those achievements that the world sees.
It's about knowing your limits and protecting your mental health.
Yeah, and it all stemmed from this need to protect her mental health, which
Yeah.
is something we talk about a lot.
Right.
But putting it into practice can be so hard.
You can.
Why do you think that is? Why is it so hard for people to set those boundaries?
Well, I think often it comes down to fear. Fear of disappointing others, fear of missing out, even just a feeling that we don't deserve to set those limits.
Right.
But as Kendall's experience shows, not setting boundaries can lead to burnout and, a diminished sense of self.
Yeah,
So recognizing your own value and understanding your needs, those are crucial first steps.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what really drives her? What's her underlying philosophy?
Well, she talked about this belief in the importance of happiness as a goal,
Okay.
which sounds pretty basic, right?
Yeah.
But the way she frames it is really insightful.
How so?
Well, she talks about her higher goddess.
Her higher goddess.
Yeah, it's this state of inner peace and self-assuredness that isn't swayed by what other people think.
That's really interesting.
Right? It's a powerful framework for building emotional resilience.
It is. And it's almost like, finding that internal anchor.
Exactly.
And she actively works on cultivating that through affirmations,
Right.
consciously recognizing her own positive qualities to counteract any negative external feedback.
It's like intentionally shifting your focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the consistent practice of positive self-talk can actually rewire our thought patterns over time.
It's powerful.
It is. By intentionally focusing on your strengths and positive attributes, you can build this more resilient sense of self that isn't so reliant on external validation.
Right. Have you ever experimented with affirmation?
For sure. It's amazing how even a few simple positive statements can really shift your mindset.
Yeah, it's true. They also talked about something I found really thought-provoking,
What's that?
the limitations of how we perceive each other.
Okay.
And she used this analogy of a leaf.
Oh, interesting.
You know how a leaf can look one way,
Yeah.
but then you turn it over and it's completely different.
Right.
It's like that with people.
I love that analogy. It's so true. It reminds us that everyone has these multiple facets to their personality and their experiences.
Right.
We shouldn't jump to conclusions based on a single perspective.
Absolutely.
It encourages a more empathetic and open-minded way of seeing the world.
Yeah, and it leads to this quote that she brought up
Okay.
from Charles Horton Cooley.
Yeah.
He said, "I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am."
Whoa. That's a lot to unpack.
I know, right?
But it really makes you think about how much our own self-perception can be shaped by what we believe others think of us.
Yeah, totally.
And that's where her emphasis on cultivating that inner higher goddess becomes even more important,
Right.
because it provides a more stable foundation for self-worth than constantly seeking validation from the outside.
Exactly. So When it came to her relationships,
Yeah.
she emphasized honesty and healthy communication, which,
Good.
isn't exactly revolutionary,
Right.
but it's always a good reminder.
It is.
And she also talked about giving yourself permission to step away and take a breath,
Yeah.
even in family situations,
Oh, wow.
if you're feeling overwhelmed.
That's a really important point about managing boundaries, even in those close relationships.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even with the people we love, it's okay to take a moment for yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Right. It's not about avoiding connection.
Exactly.
It's about making sure you're coming to those interactions from a good place.
From a place of calm and, centeredness.
Yeah. Have you ever found yourself needing to do that?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes you just need that space to reset.
Yeah, for sure. The conversation then took a more emotional turn when they discussed the loss of Virgil Abloh.
Yeah.
Her reaction really highlighted the impact of those genuine connections and that shared human experience of grief.
It did. It really underscored the value of those authentic connections we build
Yeah.
and the profound sense of loss we feel when they're gone.
It makes you appreciate those meaningful relationships in your own life.
It does. It also makes you think about how we process those kinds of losses.
Yeah, especially when they touch so many people.
Right. It raises an important question about how we honor the memory of those we've lost.
Yeah. And her focus on Virgil's positive qualities and the impact he had.
Yeah.
That offers a powerful perspective on finding meaning and carrying forward his legacy.
Even amidst grief.
Right. So it seems like her sense of purpose has evolved over time. It started with those, typical career aspirations. And now it's much more about her personal well-being,
Right.
tuning into her Hyal goddess, as she put it,
I love that.
and connecting with others in a positive way.
That's beautiful. It illustrates how our purpose can evolve as we grow and our priorities change.
Yeah.
Desire to spread love and make a positive impact reflects a more mature and altruistic sense of purpose.
That goes beyond just personal achievement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you consider how your own sense of purpose might have shifted over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in today's world, navigating all the negativity out there is a big challenge.
It is.
And she acknowledged that, the darker side of social media
Right.
and the real need for more positive content.
Yeah. And what's interesting is her proactive approach to managing that negativity.
What do you mean?
Well, by consciously seeking out and even creating content,
That's so smart.
it offers a practical strategy for all of us
Yeah.
to be more mindful of what we're consuming.
Right. She even pointed out that gravitating towards negativity can be a learned pattern.
Means we can unlearn it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Recognizing those ingrained patterns is the first step.
Towards making a conscious shift.
And it all comes back to that core idea she mentioned.
What was that?
It all starts with our relationship with ourselves.
Right. If we're carrying around a lot of negativity internally,
Yeah.
that's how we're going to see the world.
It's all connected.
It is. So cultivating self-compassion is key.
Totally. Even those small, consistent efforts to be kinder to ourselves can make a huge difference.
They can. Like trying to identify 3 good things about yourself each day.
Yeah, I like that one.
Right.
I also really like that practical tip she shared about her inner child exercise.
Oh, yeah? What was that again?
She put a photo of her younger self on her bathroom mirror
Oh, wow.
as a way to cultivate more self-love and kindness.
That's a really powerful visual reminder.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It serves as a daily reminder to treat ourselves with the same gentleness and compassion we would offer a child.
Absolutely.
That's something you could easily try.
Yeah, I think I will.
Oh.
So in wrapping up,
Yeah.
they really emphasized Kendall's intention behind having this conversation
Right.
to share this vulnerable side of herself.
Yeah.
And hopefully offer some comfort or a sense of understanding to listeners.
And it highlights that even though we all have these, vastly different lives, there are fundamental human experiences and desires for connection that we all share.
Totally. So let's break down the key takeaways here.
Okay.
From this deep dive into Kendall's conversation.
Yeah.
We heard about the importance of really knowing yourself, self-awareness,
Right.
learning to set boundaries to protect your well-being,
Yeah,
actively cultivating inner happiness, finding that sense of inner strength,
for sure.
recognizing the power of genuine connections, not just with people, but even with animals,
Yeah,
and understanding that your sense of purpose can evolve as you do.
exactly. Think about what resonated most with you from this conversation.
Yeah,
What new ideas or perspectives did you gain?
right.
And how might Kendall's experiences with managing pressure, prioritizing her well-being, finding those moments of joy,
Yeah,
how might those offer some insights that you can apply to your own life?
whatever your circumstances.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with.
Okay.
Given Kendall's emphasis on inner validation and nurturing her higher self,
Yeah.
how might shifting your focus from seeking external approval
Right.
to cultivating that deep sense of self-worth within,
Yeah.
how might that impact your overall sense of well-being and the choices you make every single day?
That's a great question to ponder.
It is. It's something worth exploring further on your own.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Yeah.